Okay, today I am in the second video of my three-part series on probate. And in my first series, I talked about how to get someone appointed to be in charge of collecting a deceased person's assets. And so in this video, I'm going to talk to you about what actually gets done after that person's appointed. What are their roles and obligations? Okay. And so I consider this part of the probate process the administering the estate part of the process. So several things have to be done. First, they need to um, start collecting the deceased person's assets, and they need to value those assets as of their date of death value. Okay. And all of the probate assets get reported on a document called the inventory. Okay. And so the inventory lays out, this is all the property, the probate property owned by this deceased person as of their date of death. This was the value. Okay. And that property gets collected and valued, and it gets transferred into what's called an estate account. We get a separate taxpayer ID number for the estate. Sometimes that's called an EIN. And the personal representative opens up this estate account using that EIN and the letters testamentary, and takes that property out of the deceased person's name and transfers it into this bank account. And then they need to prepare this inventory, like I mentioned, that basically needs to be prepared and distributed to the beneficiaries of the estate, either 6 months after the person has been appointed. That's the latest that they're able to distribute it, or 9 months after date of death, whatever is later. So usually it's 6 months after appointment, but if you got going really quick on the probate, it might be 9 months after date of death. So that's the deadline for finishing the inventory. And then there is another time period that we have to be aware of, and that is the creditors period. And the creditors period is the 4-month period that happens after notice of the probate hearing is published in a newspaper. So let's say a notice of a hearing is published September 1st. Then 4 months thereafter, September to October, October to November, November to December, and so I think by January 1st is 4 months thereafter. And that would be, we would at that point check the court records to ensure that there aren't any creditors' claims on the estate. During that 4-month period, if the person who died owed you money, you basically file a claim with the estate saying, he owed me money, I need to get paid out before, his family inherits. Okay. And so we check the court records at the end of those 4 months to see whether any claims are made. And if no claims are made during that period, then we can start to distribute the assets when we're ready. Okay. If there are claims made during that period, we have to determine that, yes, they are valid, and then pay them off. Or in very unique circumstances where the debts are greater than the assets, it gets very complicated then, and you have to figure out who gets paid first. And maybe not everybody is going to have their claims satisfied in full. So there's a very complicated method of determining, in tiers, who gets paid in each tier at what percentage. So that's beyond the scope of this video. But if it's there's lots of creditors insolvent in the state, then it becomes a challenging math proposal. So after the claims period, you want to make sure that you're paying off all their final bills, medical bills, income tax bills. During this period is when you're going to be in any real estate, transferring car titles, that sort of thing. You need to take everything out of the deceased person's name, and then pay off all their bills, and then at that point distribute it out to the beneficiaries of the estate. Okay. Now, sometimes when we're distributing to the beneficiaries of the estate, we will have them in more contested estates. We'll create a proposal for distribution, basically laying out who gets what, and then having everyone sign off and agree to it and say that, this is fair. In less contested matters, we won't do that, but that's always out there. And also you can have people sign repayment agreements. A repayment agreement adds protection to the personal representative. It basically says, look, I'm giving you this money now, but if something later were to arise unexpectedly, you're going to have to give back the money in proportion to your share to cover that unexpected liability. So some unexpected liability that can jump up a long time after someone dies is income tax returns can be audited up to 3 years after they're filed. So that's something that can come up potentially. The period can be shortened for when the government can look at those if you file what's called a 4810. 4810 is the prompt assessment on the federal level with the IRS, or an M22 with the Minnesota Department of Revenue. Both of those will shorten the statute of limitations from 3 years to 18 months. And so that can be helpful. Thank you for listening about different factors to consider when administering the estate. In the last part of my series, I'm going to talk about closing probate. And so stay tuned to learn more and subscribe to our YouTube channel to learn more about probate. Thank you.